What time is it?
Tea time!
Booyah!
Welcome back. This is Tea Time. I am Trenton, and let's get this started. Well, the NBA Finals is Game 2 is taking place tonight. You have the Golden State Warriors going up against the Cleveland Cavaliers at Golden State for Game 2. Golden State took Game 1, and they took it pretty handily. Their backups really stepped up and gave Cleveland a lot of problems. I mean, you had their bench end up scoring, I believe it was 46, outscoring the Cleveland bench by 30, which is really bad for Cleveland. But at the same time, they were able to stop both Clay and Steph Curry. I mean, I don't know how many games you're going to get a combined 20 points out of the two of them, but I know it's not going to be many, especially at home in Golden State. But if I'm Cleveland, I'm pretty happy about that result. Well, not 100% happy. Obviously, you want to win that game, but you're happy with the result that was which the Splash Brothers and Curry and Klay Thompson, that you were able to prevent them from really hurting you going off. So you don't want to hit the panic button quite yet. I still have Cleveland winning this series. I said 6, and I'm going to stick with 6 because I think one game doesn't define a series. But Cleveland found a way to stop Steph and Klay. Now, whether that be they just had an off night or Cleveland really bothered them, I honestly believe Cleveland found a way to kind of bother them, and really tonight will be the telling game. If Cleveland was to go down again and Steph and Klay were to go off on them, there might be actually bigger issues, and Cleveland's going to be in big trouble. But I think it was just one of those where the backups stepped up, the backups took care of their jobs, and they were able to pick up Steph and Klay when they were down. But I still think Cleveland's going to win this. I still think LeBron's going to find his title and bring it home to Cleveland finally after, I believe, 50 years is something like that it's been. But I'm going to get into a little bit of a topic that involves Steph Curry and LeBron that I really been meaning to get to, but now I'm going to finally get to it. But let's talk about who's the best player in the world, who's the best player in the NBA. And I have to say, Steph Curry is not in the conversation. I know I'm going to get a lot of heat for that response, but he's not in the conversation. I'm sorry. If you want to be the best player in the NBA, you have to be able to at least do well every aspect of the game. That includes defense. Curry is not in the conversation because of the fact he does not play defense. Does he play good team defense? Yeah. But I can be stuck out there with the Golden State Warriors and play good team defense. That's not a hard concept. You just have to be willing to buy into the fact that you play team defense. LeBron James is the best player in the NBA. Period. There is no debating that. You can try and say, oh, well, Steph had a better year. So what? He had a better year. He didn't have a better defensive year. Steph does not guard his own position. Now, he has the hardest position to guard in the NBA by far, especially in the Western Conference. LeBron doesn't have to guard Damian Lillard and Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook and Tony Parker and whatnot. Rajon Rondo's now in the West. You have upcoming D'Angelo Russell. Ricky Rubio can give you problems offensively, not scoring-wise, but pass-wise. But the bottom line is point guard's a very difficult position to guard. A lot of the best players in the NBA are at the point guard position. But here's the thing, Steph doesn't guard any of them. Steph guards whoever he can guard without being a liability. You kind of hide him away. Not to say that most point guards don't do it. There's only 2 point guards in the NBA who guard their position. And that's Rajon Rondo and Chris Paul. There's other guys that do it but aren't great. They're either overly aggressive or they kind of just let the guys beat them. But they're the 2 stars that guard their position and guard it very well and actually hold guys down and keep them from doing what they like to do. Steph is not one of them. But if I was to break down who are the best 5 players in the NBA, I don't think it's a discussion. I think it's LeBron, and it's LeBron by quite a bit at the top. But if I was to have to make it a discussion, I believe number 2 is the up and rising Kawhi Leonard, because he plays defense, he scores offense, he passes the ball, he plays every aspect of the game. And then I have to go with also Chris Paul, once again, plays defense, can produce offense very well, plays every aspect of the game. But as far as the best players in the NBA, that's where it stops. It's just those 3. Now, if I was forced to make 5, that's when I bring in guys who don't necessarily bring the best at every dimension, which then number 4 would be Steph Curry, and number 5 would be Kevin Durant, because their abilities on offense and passing the ball is so much better than everybody else in the NBA. I mean, those are the 2 best offensive guys in the NBA, and I don't think there's much debate in that. But if I'm going to debate you on who's the best player in the NBA, it's LeBron. And I used to be, quote-unquote, a LeBron hater. I was not a big fan of him. I held him accountable for some of the dumb things he has said as he's grown up, or as we watched him grow up in the NBA. He came in with such large amount of hype, getting drafted by the team in his home state, growing up in Akron, dreaming of bringing a title back to Cleveland, gets there. And I'm not a big advocate. I don't think he got no help in Cleveland. I just don't think they did a good job at getting him the right help. Obviously, this time around, way better. But I've been a guy that hasn't really been a LeBron apologist. I've held him more accountable than probably I should have, because I grew up watching Michael Jordan, loving Michael Jordan, and saying he's not Michael Jordan. I'm not a Kobe fan, but I said Kobe's the closest to Michael we've ever had, which I still believe as far as game goes, Kobe is the closest to Michael we ever had. But if you want to talk about best players in the NBA, I think Kobe was for a short while after Michael and before LeBron, kind of interchanging with Shaq there a little bit. But LeBron is the best player, and I have to say, I never thought all of us who love Michael Jordan, why did we love Michael Jordan? Because he did everything very well, if not good, borderline great, whether it be defense, passing, free throws, his just tenacity, his ability to win in the playoffs, do what he needs to be the best player in the world. And now we have a lot of people who believe in Michael who are choosing Steph Curry over LeBron. And I can't believe my eyes how much disrespect we give LeBron, because really he's the most underrated player in the NBA. I never thought I would say that, but he is. The fact that he's not looked at as the best player in the NBA as clear cut is just a shame, because Steph doesn't play defense. And his entire game is precedented around the fact that he can make those ridiculous shots, those ridiculous threes. When they don't fall, his drive game doesn't work. His pass game doesn't work. He falls apart, as we saw happen with Cleveland. He's not a great, well-rounded player when his shot does not fall. When his shot falls, he is one hell of a player. But when his shot's not falling, he's just another guy on the court. People seem to forget he kind of, quote-unquote, burst into the scene under Mark Jackson, 3 years ago, had a really great year. But guess what? He's been in the league quite a while. I believe he was drafted, he's 28, 28, and he was drafted when he was 20. He's been in the league almost 8 years, 8 years. And now we're just like, oh, he's been so great. Well, why hasn't he been great? Because he hasn't had any help. He hasn't been the superstar on his own. LeBron has been a superstar since he stepped onto the damn court, and he didn't always have help. What's Curry's excuse? You have to believe great players transcend their team, and Curry didn't transcend his team till he got his help, which I don't have a problem with. Everybody gets their help to win their titles, but if you want to be considered the best player in the world, you better be able to find diamonds in the rough on your own. Make guys be better than they really are. You shouldn't have to need your big three to become a great player. You should have been able to be that beforehand. And to be honest, I don't remember him being that great of a shooter, or even this consistently great of a shooter, before a few years ago with Mark Jackson. Which is a shame, because he's a great shooter. But he's not the best player in the NBA. The fact that we yearn and want Michael back and want that type of player, well, he's right in front of us. It's LeBron James. He plays unbelievable defense. He has great sight of the court, great passing. Is he Michael? No. But he is LeBron James, and LeBron James can get to the rim like no other in the NBA. LeBron James can play defense on every position on the court and defend them well. Obviously, he's going to have more troubles with very physical bigs, and obviously he's going to have troubles with very talented guards who can get around you. Or not necessarily get around you, but pop it 5 yards off the 3 line when you're not even necessarily on him. But the fact that we don't give LeBron the respect he deserves, I don't blame him for some of the comments he made to the media, which are being blown out of proportion. They're trying to make this rivalry between Golden State and Cleveland, and it's not there. Something has to happen for it to be there. You can't just make it a rivalry because they faced each other twice and there's no excuses now and blah, blah, blah. Is Curry the best player in the NBA? Is LeBron the best player in the NBA? That's not how a rivalry is made. There's really only 1, maybe 2 rivalries in the NBA right now, and one was just created. There has to be some kind of bad blood or hatred there, and that's the Clippers and the Blazers. There's no love lost between those two teams, and if you didn't know that, well, you haven't been watching them, which I don't blame you because the Blazers weren't supposed to be good this year. They're a surprise. And now the Thunder and the Warriors, just because of between the crotch kick and the 3-1 lead, the comeback, the trip, whatever it may be, there's actual bad blood between those teams now. Even that little taken out of proportion, oh, Steph Curry can't guard you, Russ, and he laughed, or whatever it was that went on between that, and the rumors of Kevin Durant going to Golden State. All those things factor in to make a rivalry, and that does not exist with Cleveland and Golden State. Now, we're about to have Game 2, so there's plenty of time for there to be a rivalry that will be created for these two teams. And if people continue to say Steph Curry is the best player in the NBA, I mean, I just heard on First Take the other day about how Stephen A. Smith believes Steph Curry feels disrespected that he's not considered the best player in the NBA. Well, guess what? You're not. Until you learn how to play a lick of defense that doesn't involve your teammates coming to help you, you're not going to be the best player in the NBA. I don't care what NBA analyst who's been doing it forever. I don't care what NBA player. Honestly, I don't care if Michael Jordan himself went and told me Steph Curry's the best player in the NBA. Really? Who does he guard? Can he play defense? Because I've watched Damian drop points on him. I've watched Chris Paul drop points on him. I've watched Russell Westbrook drop points on him. I've seen Ricky Rubio drop points on him, and Ricky Rubio can't shoot his way out of a bucket. That's the problem with today's NBA. You can't be physical. You can't be an enforcer, which for good or less is okay. But it's now all about shooting threes nonstop, not getting to the bucket, not necessarily passing the ball. If you're all hitting your shots, who cares if you pass the ball? You made your shot. And I feel it's only going to get worse. Not that I want Steph Curry and the Warriors to fail. It's just I don't think they're helping the youth. Because you can't shoot shots like they shoot. I mean, if they're falling, good for you. But what happens when they don't fall? And what did we see when they didn't fall for Steph and Clay? The bench stepped up and Cleveland choked that one out. It's going to happen. That's why they're defending champs. That's why this is a championship caliber team. They have plenty of guys who can step up and make the plays they need to have made. And the Warriors have proven they're one of the best at it the last few years. Now Cleveland, has to take their beating, take their lickings, pick themselves back up, and get ready for Game 2. I think Cleveland wins Game 2 in a hard-fought, close battle just because I think this is going to be trading blows all the way. I don't think we see back-to-back wins until Cleveland closes out 5-6. If I was to predict the way it goes, it'd be Cleveland this game. Then I think Golden State takes one first game in Cleveland, and then I think Cleveland closes out on their court, which I think that's the wrong amount of games. No, it's not. That's the right amount of games. But I think that just said they're going to win 3 in a row, which I don't think they're going to win. So that's my bad. But nonetheless, I think maybe it goes they win 2 in a row twice. I don't know. I got mixed up on my words there. I apologize. But I do think Cleveland still wins in 6 because I think they figured something out. I do believe Cleveland wins in 6 because they have the best player in the world. And his name is LeBron James. Future Hall of Famer, top 5 player all time right now. He's a top. Yes, I said that. He's a top 5 player all time right now, and his career is not over yet. Did he make mistakes when he was younger? Yes. He's going to take his talents to South Beach, win multiple titles. Obviously, that didn't work out as well as he thought it was going to work. But you have to remember he was a kid. He made a mistake. He did it dumb. He went back to Cleveland, promising championships again, this time for home. But I don't hold it against him this time. I've grown to really respect LeBron over the years because, he has changed his attitude. And I still remember when everything was down and they should have got beaten in Game 6 against Boston before they won their first title. They should have lost. But LeBron came out and did his best Jordan and Kobe impression and really grabbed my attention that game. That was the game LeBron came out and went, I'm the next Michael Jordan, and I actually believed him for once. But I'm not saying he's the next Michael Jordan. I'm saying he's the current LeBron James. And he's the best player in the world. Period. But enough of the NBA playoffs. There's a few little off-season things that have happened. You have David Joyner, who left Memphis and is now with Sacramento. And then you have Tom Thibodeau, who I think was the best coach hiring to Minnesota, which is he's going to coach that team into being a playoff team next year. You heard it here first. I think Minnesota makes the playoffs under Tom Thibodeau because he's that good of a coach. He's that great of a coach. Then you have Jeff Hornacek going to the Knicks, which is a little bit of a head-scratcher, if you will. And Dwayne Casey gets an extension. Terry Stotts gets his extension. And Luke Walton gets the job for the LA Lakers, which I actually like that hire. That's not necessarily going their normal route. They went for an inexperienced guy who's a former Laker who showed a lot of potential being on the Golden State bench, and I'd like to see what he has to offer and what he's going to do. But as far as free agents go and offseason plans, I do think Philadelphia takes Ben Simmons. I do believe Philadelphia trades Jahlil Okafor. Right now there's talks of actually Nerlens Noel for Jeff Teague, or those being the basis of that deal. Personally, I don't like that deal because I'm not too impressed with Jeff Teague. And I think it would be better for them to get rid of Jahlil Okafor just because they have basically the same thing in Joel Embiid, who they're not willing to give up because he hasn't stepped on the court yet. You are getting Ben Simmons. Nerlens Noel, of your bigs, is the only real shot-blocking rebounder who can put up points, but really his job is to block shots and get rebounds. And then, of course, you have, I'm going to butcher this name, Dragic Sajic, foreign kid who's going to be coming over, and now you're going to really have a logjam with the big man. So I think Okafor goes. Cleveland, I think it depends on what happens. I still say, I stick with my theory. If Cleveland wins the whole thing, LeBron goes to the Clippers. That's what I think will happen. As far as Kevin Durant goes, I do not believe he goes back to OKC. I think OKC and him want to split ways. As much as that's weird because Durant's one of the best players in the NBA, I really honestly do. I think eventually you have to make that choice between Durant and Westbrook, even though you don't want to. But it's clear they're never going to be able to win a title together because they don't play cohesive enough together. One of them has to be the alpha dog, and it should be Durant, but it isn't always Durant. And I think he's going to end up on another team. I think he's going to take a big, long, hard look at Miami and New York because you have some things developing in both those areas, and that's also the easier East. Go to the East, have an easier path to the finals, and have more shots. I think he's tired of having to go through these teams in the West like the Clippers and the Rockets and the Spurs and the Warriors and the Blazers and the Mavericks and have to constantly go through teams that will probably eat the East alive. But those are the teams I think it takes a hard look at, including Washington. I think Washington will be a hard road because the one hire I have not mentioned yet, Scotty Brooks. Scotty Brooks is there, and then it doesn't hurt that John Wall and Bradley Beal are there. So Washington, definitely a team I would look to see possibly go to. And then as far as any other big action, I do still think the Lakers trade their pick. Who it's to, for how much, I don't know. I don't think they end up keeping their pick. If they, for some reason, do, I think they end up with Brandon Ingram. That's just my feeling on it. But I honestly believe they trade it. I think they dump it for more established players so they can try and take a run at Durant and LeBron. If I was to guess an established player they'd go for, I think they might go and try and get Marc Gasol back. I could totally see that happening. Maybe try and lure Powell back and start mentoring Julius Randle. But they have a nice young nucleus. Now they just need the pieces around it. And I think they're going to actually go push hard between them and the Knicks. I think they're both going to push hard for Rajon Rondo. Or maybe they turn that second pick into DeMarcus Cousins, who, in all actuality, I honestly think Boston's the one that's going to turn their plethora of picks into maybe not both, but possibly both Rudy Gay and DeMarcus Cousins, but for sure DeMarcus Cousins. I think Cousins will be a Celtic next year. And then Al Horford, who knows where he's going to go. I think his best fit and best option could legitimately be the Blazers, but I also could see him maybe going to Cleveland and them dealing Kevin Love if LeBron stays. There's a lot of ways you can go with a lot of things in the NBA. But those are my takes on the NBA right now. Then we move on. We have the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, where I predicted the San Jose Sharks end this run of either being the Pirates, Kings, Bruins, or Blackhawks. And it didn't look like I was going to be right there at first. You had the Penguins hold home and win both games at home, but then last night dropped to San Jose. San Jose showing a little life. I think San Jose can win again. I said San Jose, and I don't think I picked any games, but I think San Jose will win it in 6 or 7. Probably more likely 7 now that they're down 2-1. But I think they pull it through and pull off arguably the upset there. Definitely the best player in the world is on the Penguins, and Sidney Crosby, who's playing out of his mind, is really attacking. But I think the Sharks pull this one through. I think they accomplish what they've gone out to accomplish and finally win their title, because they've been known as the choke artists in the playoffs, not being able to get it done and, well, ultimately just choke. But then we move on, go to Oregon sports. Unfortunately, I think I may have cursed the softball women. I said they were 1 win away, which they were, but then they dropped back-to-back games to UCLA, and they lost their game on a back-breaking, I believe it was last inning home run when their freshman pitcher was pitching a shutout. And then she hits one of the UCLA Bruin women hit a home run to tie it, and then they end up winning it in extras. And it just stinks, because I really thought they had a chance to go a long ways, and I think everybody else thought they had a real good chance to going a long ways, and it just ended up not being our year. It's just something that just dropped and didn't work out in the girls' favor, which is sad. But, you know, that's the way the game flows. Anyone can beat anyone on any given day, and that's just what ended up happening there. But very proud of our Oregon women. They really represented this year in softball and did a good year and fought a hard battle. Then you move on to football and basketball, which nothing has really new has come up at all. It's kind of hush-hush mode for those two right now, especially football. We're getting geared up for football coming up here pretty soon. You know, you had the spring game a while back, but we don't start up again until August. We don't get the depth chart announcement until early August. But if my money is on, at the moment, Dakota Prokop winning the starting job, but a very famous Duck disagrees with me. DT, Darren Thomas, of the Portland Thunder Arena football team, believes Travis Johnson's going to win the job, which I can totally see possibly happening. I don't necessarily disagree with him because we don't have a whole lot to go off of, but he feels that this Travis Johnson versus Dakota Prokop is very, very similar to DT versus Nate Costa. And I have to say, I agree with him. I actually can totally see that. Which, if history has shown us, Travis Johnson's going to win this battle. But also, you have to remember, you don't bring in a kid like Dakota Prokop to not start him. Now, if he gets beat out, he gets beat out, and that's the bottom line. Because this isn't like it's Jeff Locke and Taylor Ali trying to beat out Vernon Adams. This is a completely different story. Prokop does not have as much experience against FBS teams, and he didn't go into Oregon State and beat the tar out of them the year before. But is going to be interesting, but I'm going to call Pro Cup at the moment based on what I saw at the spring game. And we'll just have to wait and see. And then, of course, they came out with early projections of win-loss totals, and the interesting fact is they had Oregon at 8.5. They had Oregon at 8, Stanford at 8.5, and Washington at 9, which was very curious to me that they think Washington's going to win the North, which I think there's a possibility. I would not be surprised if Washington came out of the North with the win. That would not be a shocker to me. But, you never know. They have a lot of young talent. They have a really good defense. Chris Peterson, as I've said before, has done a wonderful, wonderful job with that team, really turning it around, doing what Steve Sarkisian could not do and then ultimately couldn't do at USC. But he's really turned Washington around and made him very respectable, very, very more feared of a team, why it wouldn't surprise me. Now, my money's still on Stanford or Oregon solely off the fact those are still two of the most talented teams, especially in the North. And I don't buy what Washington State did last year. I mean, I think it was kind of a fluky year where they took advantage of some things, but my money's on Stanford or Oregon, and I give Oregon the slight edge because talent can win you games, especially. And last year, we lost Vernon Adams for a few games, where if he would have played, we probably would have won those few games and would have ended up in the playoff. But, I mean, it is what it is. All of it's happened in the past, and we don't know. And then moving on to Oregon basketball, they got a big announcement. I can't quite remember this kid's name. I apologize. I have to look it up. But they made the top 6 for the number one recruit in basketball for 2017 recruiting season, this upcoming recruiting season. They made his top 6, which is really impressive. Or 2019, I'm sorry. But Marvin Bagley III, it's Kentucky, Arizona State, Arizona, Duke, Oregon, and UCLA. I think Arizona State's the only team you could argue that we have a better rep for basketball for. Not the other ones, obviously. Those are some pretty big basketball names in Arizona, UCLA, Duke, and Kentucky. But, I mean, the kid's the number one recruit, and the fact that we even made his top 6 is impressive in itself. Will he probably end up at Duke or Kentucky or Arizona? Most likely. That's where they've been ending the last few years. I don't think they have not ended in Duke or Kentucky the last, I want to say 6 years. But it'd be a heck of a get for Oregon if they were able to pull that one off. But, I mean, that's just showing what the great job Dana Altman's doing, turning that program around and really, really getting away from those dog years that we had at the end of Ernie Kent and really developing our guys along. But to move on to more college sports, we have the situation at Baylor where their director, Ken Starr, or I think it might be, I'm not quite sure, I think he was the athletic director, but Ken Starr gets demoted, Art Briles gets fired, and now they have something new brewing. I believe they've lost all of but 5 recruits from their recruiting class. That was a top 25 recruiting class. Everybody has decommitted. At least their top 8 guys have. And now looking elsewhere, or the current guys that are committed have all decommitted. And then they also, of their recruiting class, 9 of their guys have asked to be released from their letter of intent. Because for whatever reason, it's their call, and I get it. Signing, like Baylor University, when they denied them, said the letter of intent is not signed for a particular coach. It's you to sign to go to a particular university. But like Penn State, like USC, I think this is a situation that Bard's allowing them to be released and allowing any player that's currently on the team to transfer out. I think it might even be that extreme because what was going on, now Baylor's getting a bad rep. Baylor's going to be facing some serious problems, and it's not every player's fault. This is collegiate. This isn't pro. The team should not be held responsible for what a coach, assistant coaches, and other players did. Covering up and intimidating the women who have been sexually assaulted and sexually harassed is not okay. And if a player does not want to be a part of that, that is their right to leave. They should be allowed to leave. I hope Baylor University sees the wrong in them denying these players their release from the national letter of intent. I get it. They want to stay competitive. But you need to earn yourself some brownie points here. Let the kids who want to go, just like Penn State did, just like USC did. If they want to leave and go somewhere else because of all this, you need to let them. And that's just the bottom line. If you end up getting a bowl ban, that hurts these kids. You've already had your damage done, or soon more to be done. But you shouldn't let these kids be punished for it. You should allow them their release, allow them to pursue better opportunities for them, even if it is at the expense of your school and the expense of your football program. But moving on to a lighter note, let's get a word from our sponsor. This is Trenton from the sports podcast Tea Time with Trenton, telling you about a wonderful place at the Valley River Center Mall called Got Socks. If there's stylish, cool, new, hip socks that you need and you want, they're the place to go. Whether if you want team sports or just a cool design, maybe going a little bit of old school tube sock, whatever it may be, you go to Got Socks. They're located at the east entrance, right before the food court. You got needs, they got socks. Welcome back after the word from our sponsor. To end the show, we're going to talk about a sad day in sports yesterday, or I guess I should say the day before. Muhammad Ali dies at age 74. Now, obviously, I'm too young to have actually seen Muhammad Ali fight in person, or even around the time he was fighting. He was done well before I was born. I'm only just recently turned 27 years old. But the stories you hear, the fights you can find on YouTube, what you learn, how he changed things, is truly incredible. There's not a boxer to ever be alive that transcended the sport more than Muhammad Ali. I can't tell you how many times just messing around with friends or whoever it may be, everyone says to float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Everyone quotes, "I'm the greatest." As much as it might be denied, I do believe Rocky, the movies, which I love, are partially based off Chuck Webner and Muhammad Ali, where Apollo Creed, one of my favorite characters of all time, I believe has a lot of Muhammad Ali in him. The trash talking, the charisma, but also being able to back it up in the ring was truly a treat for all those who got to see him, which would be definitely, if I could go back in time to see one of the all-time greats perform, whether what sport it be, Muhammad Ali is definitely on that list. Seeing him box, Thrilla Manila, Rumble in the Jungle, Down Goes Frazier, whatever, pick your line, pick your rhyme, pick what it may be. Muhammad Ali truly was the greatest. He truly brought something to the table no one was used to seeing, as well as he brought to the table making your opinion count, making your opinion matter. He was arrested for evading the draft because he was unwilling to go to Vietnam because of his beliefs. Originally named Cassius Clay, changed his name to Muhammad Ali when he changed his belief to Muslim and converted to Muslim. And I have nothing but respect for the man for standing up for what he believed in. He truly is an inspiration and truly is one of the greats to talk about when you talk about all-time greats, whether it be whatever sport you may talk about. And it's a sad day to see that he's now gone. And it just makes you think, what happened to boxing today. I mean, nowadays, you don't have these type of personalities. I mean, you have Floyd Mayweather and Klitschko and Pacquiao, but I mean, really, boxing's not dying. but boxing isn't as big as it used to be, especially back then when it really started blowing up. They started doing pay-per-view because of guys like Muhammad Ali. Really made it blow up, really made people want to come watch, want to go see this guy who talked the talk and walked the walk right afterwards. He's the only 3-time heavyweight champion ever, and truly was the greatest. And before we go, I'd like to, on this podcast, give a moment of silence for the all-time great. Impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given than to explore the power they have to change it. Impossible is not a fact. It's an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration. It's a dare. Impossible is potential. Impossible is temporary. Impossible is nothing. Rest in peace, Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay. You really are the greatest. Until next time.
What time is it?